invite Urbana City Council regular session Tuesday, June 16th, 2015 at 7 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pena.
Here.
Mr. Hoffman.
Here.
Mr. Fields.
Here.
Mr. Evans.
Here.
Mr. Paul.
Here.
Mrs. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Thackeray.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first thing on our agenda tonight is approval of Urbana City Council regular session minutes of June 2nd, 2015. Council, to speak to this, we need a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the regular session minutes from June 2nd as prepared.
Second.
Mr. Fields? You got somebody, okay. No corrections or additions to that set of minutes? All those in favor of accepting the Urbana City Council regular session minutes from June 2nd, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have no communications tonight. It's a good night. Administrative reports from the Board of Control, Madam Clerk.
Number 1, the Board of Control recommends council authorize a purchase order to Reliant Mechanical Incorporated in the amount of $19,002 for the replacement of rooftop unit number 7 for the engineering office and training room. This expenditure will be charged to the Capital Improvement Fund and is in the 2015 budget. Vote 2-0.
Okay, Council, to speak to this, we need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brigger.
This is another one of the rooftop units from the original
upgrade back in 20 years ago. And over the last few years, we've been trying to catch up, get some of these replaced as their useful life goes out. This is one of the larger units, if you will. It services the engineering and the zoning office as well as the training center. And over the last couple of years, we've had some issues with it in terms of trying to keep it in cycle and keep it running. The opportunity was to budget for it this year, replace it. And when we replacing the unit we're putting in is going to be have an enhanced controller unit on it. So right now we can't split the controls between the training room and the engineering office. So thermostat's in the engineering office. So depending on what's happening in there is what you get in the training room. So we're going to have this capability to at some point modify and enhance the controls on it so we can split that and have diffusers and controls running both areas separately.
Mr. Fields, questions?
None.
Mr. Evans?
None.
Mr. Paul?
How many more of these do we have to go?
I'm sorry?
I said, how many more of these do we have to go?
I couldn't tell you for sure.
So they seem to be coming up.
They were going to try to keep them in rotation just to keep them caught up, but there was a year or so where they kind of lagged off because of the budget back in 08 and 09. Didn't do a lot of them, try to keep them moving. So.
Do you have a plan already laid out for which ones you want to replace when already?
Yeah, when we did the annual PMs and repairs, Dan's got a master sheet and he's looking at the number of calls, not necessarily age, but it's the number of calls and how much money we're spending throughout the year.
Okay, I think we did talk about that before. That triggered our memory. Okay, yep, thank you. That's all I had.
This one's actually the oldest one that's remaining. So we replaced the two above administration a couple of years ago, and those actually are pre-1996 when this addition was built, and this is one of those pre-1996, so it's actually probably 30 years old at least.
So if this is the oldest one, then how old's the next oldest one? Do we
Then
know?
we get into the 96 one.
Okay.
When we get into the
okay.
expansion.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Thackeray?
It sounds like these, since they're new units, will gain a lot of efficiency, I would think.
Oh, it'd be a
lot
more
of
efficient,
efficiency.
obviously.
So it's something that's going to be really a positive thing to get done then. So, all right. You can't hear me?
No, not very well.
I said we're going to gain some efficiency because it's a
Absolutely.
newer unit, they're run more efficient and so
Right.
forth. So I think it's a good deal.
Mr. Pena?
Sounds like we need a new one, so it's in the budget.
Trying to keep ahead of it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Hoffman?
With this zoning, are we gaining any other types of controls as far as thermostat setting changes in the evenings, at night, or do we pretty much set that thing and
It'll have more capabilities so we can break it apart. We can do some presets like we do with some of the other parts of the building. You can have a nighttime setback and adjust it so you're not cooling all night long if nobody's in the building.
I'm assuming the training room probably gets used less than the engineering office, I would assume.
Generally speaking, right.
Okay. That's all I got.
Okay, any further questions, council? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the board control's recommendation to authorize a purchase order to Reliant Mechanical, Inc. in the amount of $19,002 for replacement to rooftop unit number 7, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We also have attached a list of May's 2015's purchase orders from $2,501 to $7,500. Speak to the nose. Need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions on any of those purchase orders?
I just have a comment.
I was going to start with you.
Thanks for providing us with that information. It's very helpful.
Mr. Paul?
No questions. Thank you.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Thackeray?
None.
Mr. Pena?
No questions, but thank you.
Mr. Hoffman?
No, sir.
Mr. Fields?
Job well done.
It's good to know where the money goes. You hate to see it, but that's what you got to find out. And that was our last administrative report request. You want to talk about the problem at the bridge on Muzzies? Is that something we have to act on? Okay,
It doesn't require action, but I can explain it.
okay, if you would.
Our contract amount for the bridge widening is about $109,000. It's like $109,813. We got into the project, they sawed off, came in, did some cutting of the concrete deck that was there before to accommodate the widening with the new decks that are going on the side, and that essentially exposed some deterioration in one part of the abutment and then also on part of the existing deck. So why we had everything torn apart is basically concrete that's cracked or spalling, and basically that needed to be addressed as the project's going on. It's not really something we wanted to just ignore and have it haunt us later type thing. So there was repair work done. We also change ordered in material testing, which basically means that a firm comes in and tests the concrete. Later on, they'll test the compaction and test the compaction of the asphalt and that type of thing. It's a quality control thing. So we also added that into the contract as well. But the repair work, we just felt that we needed to get that done while they had everything opened up, and we couldn't delay the contractor since we have the bridge closed and they're out there working every day trying to meet the schedule to get the job done. So that's why it was done the way it was done, but if there's any questions.
Mr. Paul, questions?
No, it makes a lot of sense, Doug. I appreciate you guys doing that, handling it, and moving on. It's better to fix it now than fix it later, so thank you.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Thackeray?
No questions.
Mr. Pena?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Hoffman?
No, sir.
Mr. Fields?
None.
Mr. Evans?
None.
Okay, thank you for the information update. That will be the last administrative report request for tonight. We'll move into citizens' comments. Any citizen that would like to speak to council or administration, now be the time to come forward. Okay, hearing none, we'll move right on into ordinances and resolutions. We have none for third reading, but second readings.
Resolution number 2454-15, a resolution to authorize preliminary approval between the City of Urbana, Ohio and Ohio Department of Transportation for pavement planning and resurfacing of State Route 54, project number CHP State Route 54, 10.34, from the Urbana South Corporation Limit, Powell Avenue, straight line mile 10.34 to United State Route 36, straight line mile 11.22, plus or minus within the City of Urbana, Champaign County, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, council, this is the second reading. Doug, you want to go over it one more time?
Sure. This is just saying that we'll participate in a project with ODOT. I can't remember if it's in 2018 or 2019, but to resurface 54 from Scioto Street to Powell Avenue, the city portion. And we have to contribute 20%. So in a few years, you'll see legislation to officially commit the dollars. And but this is basically just saying we'll participate in the project when that time rolls around.
Mrs. Smith, any questions?
No.
Mr. Thackeray?
Yeah, we've talked before about it.
Mr. Pena?
No questions.
Mr. Hoffman?
No, sir.
Mr. Fields?
None.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Paul?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll declare Resolution 2454-15 to have had a second reading. Next one, please.
Ordinance number 4385-15, and an ordinance to amend Chapter 141 of the Urbana, Ohio Codified Ordinance concerning ambulance service rates and charges. Amended, see attached.
Second reading, Chief, what happened? Nothing, right?
Actually, we just amended what we discussed in our meetings.
Okay, so that's what the only amendment is.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to go over it real quick?
Yeah, we can. Basically, we're going to continue to abide by the AMA, American Medical Association Standards of Basic Life Support and Advanced Life Support, increasing our rates to match or, more of our comparables in the area.
Okay, Mr. Thackeray, questions?
We've already gone through it, I think it's good. I'm good with it.
Mr. Pena?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Hoffman?
No questions.
Mr. Fields?
None.
Mr. Evans?
We are going to move towards in-house billing
We will, yes,
once the contract's up.
February of
Can
next
you
year.
remind me when that is?
February of next year.
That's all.
Mr. Paul?
No other questions?
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Okay, hearing no other questions, we'll declare ordinance number 4385-15 to have had a second reading. Thank you. And the next one, please.
Ordinance number 4429-15, an ordinance adopting the tax budget of the city of Urbana, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2016, submitting the same to the county auditor.
Okay, this is a second reading. We had a public hearing before this meeting started. Well attended, I might add. Anything you'd like to add, Chris?
No, just a reminder, this is just the revenue side of the budget for 2016.
Were Mr. Pena questions?
No.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman?
No, the revenue side kind of is what it is, so, no questions.
Mr. Fields?
None.
Mr. Evans?
None.
Mr. Paul?
No, sir.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Thackeray? Okay. We will declare ordinance number 4429-15 to have had a second reading. And that was the last second reading. First reading,
Resolution number 2455-15, a resolution of support to recommend that the Community Action Organization of Delaware, Madison, and Union counties be designated as the Community Action Agency to serve Champaign County and declaring an emergency. Suspension of the rules requested.
okay, council, this is the first reading. Doug, do you want to explain it to them first, and then we'll move on to any suspensions?
Sure. At the last meeting, the director of this agency, Rochelle Twining, was here. She outlined how they've stepped in to fill the role that previously was filled by Tri-County Community Action. And basically, they stepped in to administer community services block grant funding at the time that Tri-County shut down, and have been doing that kind of an interim basis. So now they're looking for support. Basically, they need endorsements from throughout the area that they're serving, that they will become the official agency to administer those funds. So they're asking for council support of that. I put together a resolution to that effect for council to consider. They do have a deadline to have these over in Columbus at Development Services Agency by the end of the month. So hence there's a request for a rule suspension and also a 3-reading rule suspension. So.
Okay, questions on this resolution, not on the suspension yet, I guess, and then we'll decide. Mr. Pena, any questions?
No.
Mr. Hoffman?
I don't know a lot about it, but were there any other groups that showed interest in this area?
Shonda's here tonight, Shanda is here tonight with the agency. She may be able to answer that better, but I believe that there's been no other agencies that have come forward to express an interest in filling that role, so. And they do already have an office established here in Urbana on the square.
Well, they've
So-
been filling that role.
Right, since April of 2014. Right.
Mr. Fields?
You just answered my question. I just want to make sure we still had an office here in town. So, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Mike could probably answer your question, Doug. The process that they use is administered by the state of Ohio. And we may not know if other community action organizations have applied to the Office of Development Services of the state of Ohio. That's not something that you may or may not be privy to that, because they apply directly to that office to be designated. But what I will say is, for us in Urbana and here in Champaign County, this organization already has a track record here. They've been providing valuable services here for well over a year and a half, I believe. And if they're designated as the grantee, then they would be able to continue to administer the program without any bumps in the road, without any slowdown of services. They're already up and running. A new organization that would come in would have to get to know the clients, get an office, get all the things that they've already done to provide the services. So it just doesn't make sense to me not to support them, because they're already here. They already know our people. They're doing an excellent job, and they have great leadership, and they have a great board of directors. I know several of their board members, so I would recommend that we support the DMU as the designee for the Community Service Block Grant. That's all I have, Mr. Hill.
Nothing.
Mrs. Smith? Mr. Thackeray?
I would go with Al's assessment.
Okay. In
Mr.
that
Hess, I make a motion that we suspend the 3 reading rule on, let me get the resolution right, on resolution number 2455-15, and suspend the 3 reading rule and present this resolution for passage.
Second.
Any discussion on suspension? I don't think we need any. Roll call on the suspension, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thackeray?
Yes.
Mr. Pena?
Yes.
Mr. Hess, I would like to make a motion that we place resolution number 2455-15 on the business floor for discussion and passage.
Second.
Any further discussion, council? Questions? Okay, roll call on the passage, please, of 2455-15.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thackeray?
Yes.
Mr. Pena?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2455-15 passes unanimously, and it takes effect immediately
Upon the mayor's signature.
upon the mayor's signature, bright and early tomorrow morning.
Yeah, excuse me, I'll be putting together a letter of support from the mayor's office for them. I know they would like to have one from the mayor's office, and we'll be doing that too. We're working on it now.
Okay. And that was our last resolution, ordinance, request for money, citizens' comment. We'll move right into miscellaneous business. Mr. Fields, we'll start with you this evening.
I just, everything they had going on last week, I think Urbana is well represented on the map. And
Pretty cool.
thanks to everybody that stepped out there and did the things they did.
A lot of people here.
That's all I got.
Mr. Evans?
Doug, I got some things I want to ask you. Being the zoning czar, I'm sure you're familiar with these.
Yes.
One side says Sparky's,
Right.
but the other one says yard sale. Now, I found this as I was coming in the building. It was in our grass.
Okay.
Now, we do have a regulation about yard sales, correct?
That's correct.
And can you explain that to the citizens?
If you are having a garage sale, you are allowed a sign on your lot where you're having the sale and nowhere else. So it is illegal to post them on telephone poles or put them in the city right-of-way or tack them to the city's traffic light poles and we remove hundreds of them a year, so.
Okay. So my plea to the citizenry is, if you're going to break the law and put a sign up, when your yard sale's over,
Take it
at
down.
least take the damn thing down and throw it away. And don't let it blow all over the city. Second, I want to revisit a problem because I saw it happen again. And it just blows my mind that we can't do something about this. A little silver car driving down the middle of Amherst Drive early in the morning. The driver's throwing stuff out one side and the passenger's throwing stuff out the other side. And they're landing wherever you think they should land. Now, it's a distribution of unwanted literature, improperly delivered, and the only acceptable method of delivery should be to the receiver's doorstep. Now, I would like to have a resolution, an ordinance, or some kind of method for us to tell these folks that, yeah, they can distribute that in the city of Urbana, but they're not going to throw it in the street. And I think we could, if we say the only accepted method of delivery is to your doorstep, I'd like to run that up the flagpole and see if it flies. I've heard your response, Ms. Law Director, but I'm ready to challenge it. If we say you can deliver, we're not going to stop you from delivering it. Just put it on the person's doorstep and not throw it in the street or the yard or the driveway or on their car or wherever it may land.
Work session topic, sound like it?
No, we've already talked about it.
I mean,
I want a resolution.
How you want the resolution to read and what everything you want?
Exactly what I said.
Okay.
The distribution center of literature in the city of Urbana is not prohibited. The only accepted method of delivery is to the doorstep.
Mr. Evans, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not going to pass the muster of the Second District Court of Appeals.
I don't care. I want to put it out there and let it go through the courts.
And in my role as law director, I have to review all legislation for the conformity to state, federal laws, and I'm not going to approve that for council submission. Because the second district has said you cannot do that.
I want to challenge that. I think we should have the right as a municipality to tell people whether they can throw stuff in our street. And if we have to challenge it, we can challenge it.
Well, you're more than welcome to introduce that resolution.
I'm introducing it. I just need you to write it up, or someone to write it up.
I don't write the legislation, Mr. Evans.
Well,
I
okay.
review it for the
All
legal
right.
issues.
We need to write it up.
Mr. Evans, I will work on this.
Okay.
And I'll work with you. I hear your pain, and I understand it, because it happens to me too.
It happens to you too.
Right.
Sure.
And what I'll do, I will work with you, and we will get something written up.
I appreciate it. One more thing. For my neighbors on Amherst and Woodell, and Finch and Ames, if you didn't receive your notice on your door, be aware that starting tomorrow, the company is going to start paving the area in which they laid the new main. And you're probably not going to be able to get in and out of your driveway for at least 2 days. So if you don't want to be stuck in your driveway, you need to park your vehicle on the south side of Amherst Drive and the opposite side of which would be the south side of Woodell as well, correct?
I've not heard that, so.
Yeah, we got it. I got it. When I got home today, I had one on my door. So they've already started paving it up towards Finch, but they're going to be coming down Amherst, and if they happen to be paving in front of your driveway and you can't get out, you're going to be stuck. So they're asking you to park on the opposite side of the street, just for a couple days.
Rotate.
Until they're done. They're just going to pave where they dug up to put the main in for now.
Get the trenches ready, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So just a heads up, they're going to start tomorrow, and they're going to try to get it done by Thursday, and then you'll be able to drive on it on Friday, according to the guys that are doing the work there. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Paul?
Just briefly, great events this weekend. Hope we keep the momentum going for the rest of the summer. Thought they were well attended despite the bad weather. A lot of fun, saw a lot of people out and about. Secondly, Al, get that thing on paper. Let's take a look at it. I think it's a good idea. Let's see what we can do about that, because we see that everywhere. That's absolutely. So that's all I have.
Does that mean newspapers too?
Anything that's thrown out, I just think the distribution method should be to your doorstep. If they want to give it to you, fine, whether you want it or not, but at least put it on your doorstep. I don't think that's that critical or a big demand. Just, instead of throwing them out the window, get out of the car and walk up and put it on my doorstep, and then I'll throw it away.
When's the activity going on at the city park? With Stokes?
July 11th.
July 11th? Okay, that's all that I have.
Summerfest, I think is what he's called it. Yes.
Okay, that's all that I have.
July 11th. We have a couple meetings more to announce it. Mr. Thackeray?
I had a call this week about a garage that had burned, that hasn't been torn down, and I know what the current status is, but I did talk to Mr. Bruger. If you could just address that, because the whole neighborhood's concerned about it, and I couldn't call everybody back. I thought maybe if you could address it real quick, then that'll take care of that maybe. I'd appreciate it.
You want to update it?
Yeah.
Make sure I understood what you're
That
asking.
would be great, and hopefully they're all listening and they can find out what the status is.
Right. A month or so ago, we had to have the asbestos tested to make sure there wasn't any asbestos in the building. That came back negative, so now we're in the process. The RFQ is written. We'll finalize that. It's planned to go out hopefully tomorrow and have the RFQ, get the contractors to give us some pricing and get that moving within the next couple, 3 weeks. So, it's just waiting for it to get out of the courts so we could do something with it, and then getting it resolved. So we'll have it done just as soon as we get the prices back, we get the approval and move on. So we're in the final steps of it now.
Thank you.
Mr. Pena?
I just want to echo what Dwight said about the activities this weekend. It was very nice, very busy. Everybody did a lot of work. Thank you for all the help. Great turnout.
Mr. Hoffman?
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay. Anything else for us, Chief?
I don't think so.
Chief Lingrel? Doug always does. He's as bad as me.
I just wanted to give council a heads up about the next meeting. You will see a change order for the Phase 1 project in the Amherst Wooddale area. So you will see that on your next agenda. That project was bid very tight. The estimate was very tight. We had 10 bids when we bid it, and we've had a few extras along the way. A lot of the cost actually is related to, if you're familiar with Amherst at all, there's a telephone line that runs down the street on Amherst that's because of all the way all the utilities fit in on that street, it's very tight, and they had to do some additional work with that trench, basically pulverizing the concrete and now putting it back in order to accommodate the water main going in. So we had some extra costs for that. And then a couple of things that came up along the way, which is pretty normal, but the biggest cost is that trench. So we'll have that. And then also we're going to pick up a small portion of Amherst and pave it over to Bon Air. That's not part of the excavation area, which came up in our neighborhood meeting. So that'll also be part of that. So you'll see that at the next meeting. I just wanted to give you the heads up. On the other Phase 1 project, we actually are negative 4,000 right now. So that one had some fluff in it, if you will. So we're doing real well on that one. But the other one's pretty tight. So just wanted to give everybody an update. But both projects are obviously moving along. So I believe all the main on Court Street's almost laid now. So they'll start working on services next. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Doug. Anything additional in the law department?
Well, I would say that just on the, on the nature of Mr. Evans' complaint, since we are looking at an overhaul of the solicitation ordinances, that is more properly where it should probably go than the littering ordinance, because the second district, State versus Wood, and U.S. versus Martin, basically said you cannot hold newspaper distribution of any sort to be littering. So it can be restricted as to time, place, and manner, but it cannot be considered littering.
This is America, and anything can be challenged.
But you have to have standing to challenge
Just because they
it.
say it can be challenged.
So
That's what it's all about. I think they're wrong, and I want to challenge them.
We'll see what happens. We'll see how strong the newspaper lobby is. Finance department have anything for us?
Nothing at this time.
Administration does.
I have a few things. First of all, YouTube is active. Our June 2nd meeting is up. I checked it Friday night, and there were 8 views on Friday night, as of Friday night. And I checked it again last night, and we're up to 12. So I guess I was maybe number 8 or 9. So anyway, go on YouTube, just type in Urbana, Ohio City Council, and you'll have some options to look at. And there's some other things that are some nice nostalgia. Gary McLaughlin's got a couple of things up that some tours around town. Class reunion 1969 to 1972. So, it's kind of fun to kind of flip through, look at the old Pioneer Days in 1971 parade, see if you can find anybody you recognize or not. But anyway, it's fun. The volume, we got to work on the volume a little bit, but other than that, it is up and running.
Thank you.
So there's another option.
And what do you look under again?
Go to YouTube and just type in Urbana, Ohio City Council, and then you'll have some options to click on. As we get more meetings up, you'll have to go back and look at things. So that's up and running. It's ahead.
Worldwide.
3 miscellaneous items, and we'll move right into the meat of it that I had. Work session next Tuesday. Right now, we've got a couple of items, 3 items we'd like to have on the agenda. One would be specific questions between now and then, if you have any on the tax budget that we've been reviewing. Be a good opportunity if you have any specific questions, come to the meeting with those, or send them ahead of time, then we can have them, a little more discussion on them at the work session there on the tax budget. I want to talk about just some general discussions around different contracts. As we go through the year, new things pop up that we just need to understand. And then the segue then is the miscellaneous business that we had listed on the agenda is a amendment to Chapter 755, which is our solicitors, peddlers, and vendors ordinance. In the packet, we put together just like a 1-page, thought-provoking, what are we looking for? Over the last year and a half or so, we've had, with on the Food Network and the different areas around, you see a lot of food trucks popping up Columbus, Springfield, Dayton, some of the bigger metropolitan areas having a little more activity around food trucks. And if you had the opportunity to go to the fairgrounds this weekend, there was a number of food trucks. And I would anticipate at some point, some of those might want to come back to town, either on an individual basis or for different events. So what we wanted to do is just kickstart some discussion, and we've taken the liberty of just kind of putting together a general stab at some amendments to this Chapter 755. And I think in your packet, mine is in red. Anything in red are the things that we've added. So we just felt it made sense to amend an existing ordinance rather than creating an entirely new ordinance. So I would just encourage you to read through that. We can have this little discussion tonight to kick it off, but I would like to use this topic as one of our topics for next Tuesday's work session. And, the underlying driver that I mentioned in the summary is just, how much oversight do we really need, or do we really want, or how much should we have? Everybody has a different level of how much involvement we need to have. So I would just encourage everybody to read through that, maybe look around, do a little soul searching, and figure out what it is that you feel the city needs to be involved in. Listed a number of items there. Should they be restricted to different areas? Should we be getting any permits? And are there going to be hours of operation restrictions? Those are the types of things that I think we have to ask ourselves. What do we need to be involved in, and how much regulation do we want over it? And obviously, the more regulations you put in, the expectations change. Then you're also somebody's going to get a phone call and say that food truck is 2 feet too close to where it's supposed to be, and somebody's got to do something about it. So I think just be cognizant of what we want to put down in the ordinance, so we don't put ourselves in a position that isn't going to be very friendly, if you will. So with that, I open it up if anybody has any initial comments. If you had a chance to read through it, we can have a segue into next Tuesday's meeting.
Mr. Fields?
None.
Mr. Evans?
Work off of your comment about the newspaper, we'll find out how strong the restaurant lobby in Urbana is with this proposal. Because I would say this would be something that restaurateurs would be very interested in, having having to compete with a mobile unit when you have an established structure, brick and mortar, and employees that work in Urbana and earn money and pay taxes, and a guy that's going to drive here for a couple of days and park and take the money out with him. That's going to be a conundrum. So we'll see how strong the restaurant lobby is.
Mr. Paul?
I have nothing at this time.
Mrs. Smith?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Thackeray?
I've got a lot of comments, but we can wait a work session if you want. I don't think we'll see that restaurant jump up and say no, because most restaurants are in support of bringing more people into town, and we want to do that. So we'll see. When we get further down the road, we'll know. But
I certainly wouldn't want to have a mobile auto parts store come to Urbana.
Would you want a national auto manufacturing company, parts company come and set up in your parking lot and bring people to you to see that you're there?
No, I wouldn't want any competition that wasn't playing by the same rules that I'm playing by.
Well, that's what we got to look at.
Mr. Pena?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Mr. Hoffman?
I think it's an interesting concept that I think some of the local businesses may be able to have their own mobile food truck and kind of bring a taste of Urbana to one location, whether it's at the park or for a special event. And I've been seeing them out. I saw a couple at the square the other day. They were side by side, and I thought, okay, here we go. Food truck competition. But I saw a lot of people uptown. I saw more people in the square that day than I do on, let's say, a normal basis. And it could have been weather related or whatever. But I think we need to be smart about the rules, and I'm sure there's other municipalities that have this spelled out, that they've been dealing with this. So I would assume, I could be wrong. But I think it's a good idea, and I think it's something we just need to be smart about. I agree with you, Carrie.
We have one brick and mortar restaurant that has a mobile food outlet, so it must not be too bad. Other than that, I guess,
I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman.
I was going to say that'll get a good discussion at our work session next week. Speaking of food, no, go ahead. Mayor.
To go along with the last weekend, it was fantastic. And up at the airport, the Pilots Association had a good turnout for their breakfast, and I just want to thank the DAV and the VFW for their participation in this and bringing in the armed services, the Army, Marines. They had a group of recruits, Marine recruits. They were going through their calisthenics and doing runs, and it was really neat. And a lot of the old airplanes and the helicopter rides. I just can't believe how many people got in that Cobra for the price that they were asking. I mean, and what a ride that would have been. You couldn't have got me in it. But I'm just, I'm real thrilled what happened this past weekend, especially with the Rhythm and Food Fest. They had their problems with the rain, but it seemed like Saturday night, not too many people left after that 6 o'clock downpour came. They went on with it, and there's a lot of people there. I was working the gate for the Lions Club, and a lot of cars came through. Had one car come from Marion, didn't even know where Urbana was. He came down, he had his little GPS to find it. But anyway, it was a good weekend. Also coming up, I want everybody to know that once again the Hobie, which is let me get it's the acronym for Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference, is going to be held out of Urbana University. I've been out there 3 years now introducing them, and if you think our youth is going down the tubes, no. Go out to Urbana University, take a look at this group of kids. There'll be 200 of them out there. They're also going to be doing projects here in the city. They will be at Caring Kitchen, helping out there. Let me get the First Presbyterian Church, Caring Kitchen, Paws Animal Shelter, Melvin Miller Park, YMCA, Hearth and Home, the Masonic Temple. They're going to have a car wash. The American Heart Association, the Monument Square District, they're going to be doing letters to soldiers overseas here. They're just great kids. And I'm to give them a proclamation, and I'm just going to read through it. I'm not as a proclamation, but I want you to hear what it says. The City of Urbana continues to encourage individuals and organizations to guide and mentor our youth, teaching them to make a positive difference in our community. We again welcome the students and staff involved with this successful program offered by Southwest Ohio Hugh O'Brien Youth Hobie Leadership Program. In the summer of 1958, actor Hugh O'Brien, inspired by unforgettable experience he had with Dr. Albert Schweitzer, developed leadership seminars focused on young leaders of our nation. And we support the mission of Hobie as it serves to develop, encourage, and honor leadership potential beginning with high school sophomores, creating opportunities for development in critical thinking skills, supporting democracy and free enterprise, and inspiring the social responsibility. And Hobie is celebrating 57 years as our nation's top youth leadership organization, with participants in all 50 states and more than 20 countries, over 375 alumni, and 4,000 volunteers who invest 1 million hours per year. And the 2015 Leadership Seminar is once again being held at Urbana University with 200 students registered to attend classes and participate in more than 13 community projects beginning June 18th through June 21st. That's pretty much the proclamation. And like I said, I can't say enough about the kids that are coming here. And you'll be seeing them around this weekend doing different things. So if you see them, go up to them and thank them for being here and for really being good kids. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. It's good to have good news. I got a couple things. Had somebody come in today and ask about the cemetery board. We talked about a cemetery board a month or so ago, and have we made any progress on that establishment as far as working council and administration to get something to talk about yet? No.
We could bring that up if you want to talk about that on Tuesday, but that'd be a short.
That'd be short. That'd be great. That'd be great. We get some volunteers started.
Can we, just on that, if I can we put a date on that for us to meet?
Next Tuesday.
No, I mean, at the work session, one of our topics under the cemetery is the cemetery committee should get together and, or we'll set a date for the cemetery committee to actually meet, which we haven't done yet.
Okay. Another thing going on this coming weekend, next weekend, 2 weeks for the Home and Garden Tour.
Week after.
Week after this, yes, the last weekend of the month. How's that? We'll have a lot of people from out of town coming and touring some of the homes in Urbana. It's a good opportunity to showcase our city, so if you see a lot of people not knowing where they're going, give them a break and don't run over them. Since the police chief and the fire chief are both here, I get compliments on both your departments a lot. I mean, I rarely ever hear anything bad about either one of you, and I appreciate all you do, and they told me when you see them, let them know that. So from everybody I talked to, thank you very much. And one final YouTube, let everybody know that you can now go to YouTube to watch city council meetings, spread the word so we can have more than 8 people hit it next week, and 2 of them are the administrators, so I really don't think that counts. But anyway, we are on YouTube now, so you don't have to have cable TV to watch council meetings as long as you have a computer with access to the internet. You can watch council meetings anywhere you are. So all your friends and relatives out of state, tell them you're on TV and they can spread it that way. You can come, citizens' comments, and everybody can see it.
I just hope that one of the creative people out there in the world doesn't make a bad lip reading video about our city council meeting.
Any, is good, so. Okay, that's all I have, except we have a request for an executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121-22, parentheses G, parentheses 3, and I don't know why they do that. A conference with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject to pending or imminent court action. This has been approved by your law director, so if you're so inclined to have an executive session, council.
So moved. Second.
Roll call on the acceptance of having an executive session.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Mr. Thackeray?
Yes.
Mr. Pena?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Okay, we will be retiring to executive session to speak about pending and imminent court action. We'll come back and dismiss our meeting, and no further action will be taken tonight. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the summer.